Mary is the CEO of Careerstone Group and delivers organizational development solutions to workplaces. Managing up isn't sucking up, huh, Mary?
It's not sucking up.
So what is the difference?
I'm telling you, well, here's the difference. So when you're sucking up or you're brown nosing, really the only purpose you're serving is kind of your own survival, your own sort of path forward, right? So I'm just going to suck up to you because it's really all about me when I do that. Managing up is when you're going to develop a robust relationship with your boss in order to get good results for you, for your boss, and for your organization. So it's a three-fer, right? So if I'm going to see, like, how can I work the best with you, Dr. Anita, if you're my boss, so that I can make you successful, I can be successful, and the organization is going to be successful. So that's why it's not sucking up. Although, as we talk more about bosses, there is one boss that likes to being sucked up to a little bit. We'll talk about that one later.
Managing up is a place of choice. Versus being a place of victimhood. What is that?
Well, so, you know, so often in the workplace, we may get a boss that we don't love, right? And there's a lot of bad bosses out there, people, because organizations still promote people based on technical skills and not in their aptitude for managing people. Right. So your chances of getting a boss that's not very good are pretty high if you work long enough, right? So when you have a boss that's difficult or a boss that's just difficult for you or a truly terrible boss, you have three choices. You can either choose to accept the situation and just accept it, right? Eckhart Tolle tells that to us. Accept it. Just don't get all worked about it. That's the way it is. You can choose to change the situation, and we know that we cannot change other people, right? As much as we wish we could.
So how does an employee?
You change your way you interact with somebody else. So I can't change you. I can only change how I interact with you. And then the third choice is to leave the situation. So when you don't make one of those choices, if you decide to stay and be bitter and complain, you've made yourself a victim. And once we make ourselves a victim, we disempower ourselves. So as long as you choose to either accept it, leave it, or change it, knowing you can only change your reaction to it, you're making a good choice, and any one of those choices are good. When you don't make any of those choices and you decide just to complain and be like, that's awful, that sucks, I'm not going to do anything, you're sabotaging your own career and your own happiness.
Yeah, that's what bitterness looks like under acceptance.
Yeah, exactly.
The whole victim thing.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. And when you, because think about, well, you know a few people that perhaps work in government. You've worked in a few offices. We've all seen people that don't want to take responsibility for their own professional happiness or the professional success. They want to put everything on the boss, everything on what other people are doing or not doing for them. And they become victims and their career stalls. And their workplace happiness stalls. And I'm guessing many parts of their lifestyle too.
So now, how does this help? Because it seems like it would be exhausting in the workplace to always be managing up. Then when you got to other parts of your life, like home or out with friends and family, you wouldn't have anything left to.
Well, you know, that's an interesting question. I would say being a victim is more exhausting. Okay. Right? Because you're surrounding yourself with negative energy. And the truth about managing up isn't that it's so much extra work, it's just different work. So for example, let's say that you were a manager that liked a lot of details, right? You're very detail oriented. And let's say as a worker, I'm just not. I'm kind of a big picture gal, you know, like blah, blah, blah. And so in order to work well with you, you're going to need something from me more than I'm used to giving, right? You're going to want me to know the details. Maybe you're going to want longer reports. So yeah, it's going to take a little extra work, but it's going to be worth it because you're going to start to trust me. You're going to trust my judgment. I'm going to give you what you need. And after a while, you may let me go be big picture once you're sure that I understand and grasp the details. So it's not so much that it's going to be that much more work, but it often requires us to work differently than we like to work. And nobody likes to change, right? No. We all kind of wish the other person would change, right? But when it comes for us changing, for us to try a new behavior, it's much harder.
Can an employee affect their boss's energy level?
Absolutely. And that is one of the things that you want to be really careful that when you are working with your boss, and by the way, your peers, your coworkers, and your spouses, you want to work with people's energy level and not against it. You don't want to be the drain, the energy drain, right? If every time you interact with your boss is like, oh my God, thank God she's leaving my office, like they're not going to want to interact with you, right? But if when you interact with your boss, they're like, you know what, I felt really great about interacting with Anita. I'm energized for her, or she works with my energy, it's gonna go a whole lot better for you.
Now, and speaking about energy, in your book, you go into detail with the any and the outing.
Yeah.
Give me some background on that so then we can get into the details of what they are.
This is one of the very best things you can do, at least a great place to start when you manage up, is figure out if your boss is an introvert, which is an innie, or an extrovert, which is an outie. And the reason this is important is, as you mentioned, this really has to do with energy, right? The source of energy. And it also has to do with preferred communication styles. So an introvert, for example, is the person that gets energized from within, from their own ideas, their own thoughts. They tend to like to work alone a lot. They may work behind closed doors. They may not be engaging with you that much. They may not reach out to have like a lot of personal conversations. They don't readily share information, and it's not because they don't like you, it just doesn't occur to them, right? And they like a lot less external stimulation. You compare that to the extrovert, right? An extrovert readily engages with people. They readily share ideas. They think out loud all the time. Like you'll be talking with them and they'll feel like they've changed their mind like 6 times, but they're just processing out loud, right? Yes. They're always checking in. Maybe they're walking around the office, always popping in for a chat. So the thing about the introverts and the extroverts is too much extroverted behavior with an introverted boss is going to drain them, and not enough extroverted behavior with an extroverted boss is going to drain them. For example, I am an introvert. Okay, I know I play an extrovert on TV.
Yes,
so
you do.
I do, right? But I am an introvert. So I have an extroverted job. My job is very much working with people, corporate training, facilitation. So I get done with that, and I don't want to talk to anybody for like 6 hours, right? And so my team knows, do not call Mary like at 4:30 or 5 after she's been training all day, because she's not going to want to talk to you, right? It'll just be draining.
Because you're drained because
I'm
you're
drained, you know, and so they know how to work that. Now, an extrovert boss, like if I was an extrovert, they would be aware that if I was extroverting all day, I'm probably going to want more, right? And they would know that they better engage with me. So it's really about understanding how to work that. So if you have an introverted boss, I have a couple tips for you. Introverted bosses, it's going to be up to you to check in regularly with them. They're not going to be as proactive about checking in with you, right? Don't assume their silence or their kind of reservedness is about you. It's not about you. Don't assume they're unfriendly because they may forget to say hello. It's just they're probably in their own world, their thoughts. Get on their calendar. It's going to be up to you to schedule meetings with them. They're going to cancel half of them, but that's okay. You'll have the other half, right? And then finally, if you're an extrovert and you're working for an introvert, I want you to put a sign on your computer that says wait, and it stands for why am I talking? If you are just talking to fill the space with an introvert, don't do it. So those are my tips for my introverts. Now, if you're working for an extrovert, I'm going to give you different tips. So let's say, are you an introvert or an extrovert?
Introvert.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yes. Okay, so let's say you are working for an extrovert, and that extrovert boss is probably going to drive you crazy. Is she pops into your office all the time, wants to say hello, wants to have long meetings that could have lasted 4 minutes, right? I come into 10 minutes.
Once we go to lunch together and we just got out of a meeting.
Yeah, of course she does, right? It's important to her. So you know what you have to suck it up now and then and go have lunch or maybe a cup of coffee or something. But they're going to want to feel engaged, because if they feel like they're getting information from you is pulling teeth, it's going to de-energize them. So be ready for the pop-in. If you want to control the pop-in, go pop in on them instead, right? Go into their office, pop in, say hello so they don't come there. Speak up during meetings, even if you're not if your thoughts aren't fully formed. Extroverts don't expect you to have perfect thoughts when you come out. You're definitely going to want to engage them a little bit. A little bit more face-to-face time or phone time with extroverts work really well.
Which is exhausting.
I know, girl. We like
introverts.
the email. We like that because it's easy. It saves us energy. But you need to get a little face time with the extroverted boss, because that's what's going to energize them. I know. Look how tired you are just thinking about it. But you can manage it. Like, you have to literally put it into your day. Like, think, okay, I'm going to have a half an hour. I'm going to close myself off. I'm going to flip the switch, and I'm going to go talk to my extroverted boss for 10 minutes every day. You can do it, girl. You can do it.
Oh, my goodness.
That's a challenge. I'm going to call you
in
1 week.
It is a big challenge.
But, you know, it will be worth it. Because people trust people they know. Right? And people trust people that's easy to communicate with. So we have to make it easier to communicate with people who are different than us.
And it's all in translating.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no good or bad.
Right,
Yeah.
because if you're an extrovert, you have to translate to what your boss's language is.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Right. And yes, would it be an ideal world?
Gee.
It is, but like, I know.
And here's the next question.
Yeah.
Why does all of that matter when I'm only here to get the work done?
Oh, you're here for so much more. You're here for so much more.
Why is it that they aren't responsible for their own interpersonal management?
In a perfect world,
work.
In a perfect world, your boss would adapt to you. In a perfect world, managers would know how to manage people and projects, right? They would know what their role is. They would understand what you needed so that you would feel valuable and valued, right? They would know that Anita's an introvert. She gets the work done. She doesn't need to be bothered. But guess what, girl? We don't live in a perfect world. And as we talked about in the very beginning, people hire managers based on their technical ability and not on their managerial ability. And managers are human beings, and they have their own, personalities, their own preferences, their own communication styles, and their own pet peeves. So we can't wait for the unicorn boss, right? We have to work on the boss that we have. So letting go of why should I is the first step you have to do to manage up.
And that unicorn boss is a unicorn. It's
a
very rare.
Yeah, very rare. It's very rare, and I hope everybody has one at some point. But another reason you want to manage up is because your career matters, right? Your career matters, and your workplace experience matters. In order to get the workplace experience and the career that's right for you, we sometimes have to manage those who manage us.
Whew.
Truth bomb.
Exhausting. We'll be right back after this to actually get into some of the objections of why people don't like to manage up.
What if I told you that you could stop the negative tape from playing inside your head? What if, with 7 simple steps, you could leave the pain of the past behind and live every day as your true, authentic self? It is possible, and you can do it. The ebook, 7 Simple Steps to Beat Emotional Baggage, How to Become Whole, Healed, Healthy, and Happy, shares how to resolve emotional baggage and feel free to live true to your own personality, spirit, and character. Transform negative thinking into positive thinking and become equipped to boldly face your past and resolve emotional pain. Get your free copy at thatanitalive.com/ebook.
And we're back with Mary Abbajay, and we're talking about managing up in your work environment. To create the type of work environment that is optimal for you, you must take responsibility for managing up.
That is absolutely correct. And you have to remember, the workplace is a social system. I know, Dr. Anita, meaning it's not that it's a party, but it's a social system, which means that we have to work with, through, and around other people. And in a social system, relationships matter. And the relationship that matters the most is your relationship with your boss. You need to do what you can do to make that a good relationship.
Because as an introvert, we want to come in, you could really just slip us the work you want us to complete through a mail slot in the door. And we would get it done, email it back to you, or we would slip it right back through that mail slot and be just fine.
And be just fine. That's right.
But
the rest of the social system isn't just fine with that.
Okay. Objections, reasons, like one that I just gave.
Yeah, you said one.
And why people do not want to manage up. First, why should I do all the work of managing when my boss makes all the money?
Because it's the long game, right? So again, if your boss isn't very good at managing, you can sit back and just be like, ugh, and let your career die. Or you can take the active approach to manage up. And yes, they should be doing it. Yes, it's their job to do it. But if they don't, then someone's gonna have to do that, and it's your career that matters. So at the end of the day, you get to choose whether or not you wanna grit your way through this. And you can learn a lot from a bad manager. I always say, don't give up the opportunity to learn from a bad manager. Because at the end of the day, your career matters. That's why.
What if there's a team and it's a crazy mix of introverts and extroverts?
Yeah.
What would be your suggestion there?
Well,
do you try and manage all of your team workers in addition to your boss?
Yeah.
Woo!
It's about adapting. Successful people.
That's another job to get paid for in addition to.
That is success in life requires being able to adapt. Right? It requires being able to be flexible to adapt and succeed in different situations. We are not always going to have the luxury of being with the same group of people who are exactly like us, doing the exact same thing we do. In order to really get stellar results, we're talking about diversity. We're talking about being able to roll and adapt to diversity. And sometimes it's diversity of personality, sometimes diversity of energy sources.
There's another perspective.
But that is, I mean, this is about understanding how you can really work well, collaborate, communicate with people of all kinds, not just people who are exactly like you.
Because, not me, because in my home I have peace and quiet. But I know a number of people that in the home, children under 5, they've got daycare, they may, or not all, if all of them are not under 5, school. Then they may have a parent that has just moved in because they have an ailing parent that can no longer live alone. With so much going on in the home environment, what do they pull from? Where do they get their energy source to actually then come into the 9 to 5 and do that exact same thing all over again?
Well, I think for that situation, I think we have to be realistic in our lives about what kind of a work environment is going to work for us.
Okay.
Right? So you have to be thinking about if your work life is so stressful, or there's so much managing up going on, or the energy is just too draining, then I really think something's going to give. And I think you can't, get rid of your family. Well, you could, but you might go to jail, right? So you need to find the right work environment for you, and that's also about being adaptable, understanding that at different times in your life you're gonna need a different workplace experience, and that's okay.
Okay, here's the second objection.
Okay.
Sucking up is for suckers and patsies.
I love this one. All right, it's not, and here's why it's not.
Okay.
And I could totally understand that. In America, we love leadership, right? We love leadership. We teach it, we preach it, we hit everyone over the head over it. Americans spend $14 billion a year on leadership. And yet, look where it's gotten us, right? We have managers that don't know how to manage. Poor managers are the number one reason why people leave their jobs. And I think in all that talk about leadership, we haven't really talked about the word followership. Because in reality, we all have to follow as well as lead, right? And understanding how to manage up is not being a patsy, it's understanding what your role in that relationship looks like. So if we reframe it from a power hierarchy into a relationship hierarchy, everybody has agency. You get to choose what kind of behaviors you want to bring into any sort of relationship in order to make that relationship strong. So saying that you're a patsy is misunderstanding the point of what your role in that relationship is, and how you can bring authenticity and a little bit of control and a lot of choice and agency into your role in that relationship.
And my favorite objection from the book. All of this sounds really nice and sweet, but it's being fake and inauthentic to myself.
Oh, I love this one. So authenticity is not about being authentic when you're home alone in a room, okay? Authenticity is about being who you are in relation to other people. So authentically, I swear like a sailor. Authentically, I swear like a sailor who is a truck driver on weekends, right? So is it inauthentic of me to not drop an F-bomb in this show? Because it's not who I am. I'm being fake, right? Authentically, I am extremely impatient, right? Is it inauthentic of me not to like honk my horn and flip you the bird every time like you're going slow on a street, right? So it's not about being who you are all the time to the fullest extent. It's about bringing the authentic piece of you into a relationship where it can work in relationship with other people.
That's deep. That in and of itself we can unpack.
Yeah.
Because when you're in a relationship with other people, and these people are not your relatives.
That's right.
They're not your caretakers and you're not their caretakers. But you're all in this one mission together.
Yeah.
And dealing with a team. You said yes to managing teammates as well as boss.
Yeah. It's called collaboration.
That you have to participate sometimes in the extracurricular activities at work.
Yes, I mean, to some extent. I mean, you want to build strong relationships with your team members, and sometimes that means going for coffee, sometimes it means a happy hour, sometimes it means, let's go out, sit outside for lunch. And you want to do this for a couple of reasons. One, there may be a time where you may need their help. right?
Right.
And if they know you as a person, right, they're more likely to help you. There may be a time in your life where opportunities for other careers or other jobs or other good things come from other people. They don't come down from the sky, right? So if you build bonds with people, then opportunities will come your way, help will come your way, they'll have your back, and so that's why that's important.
Now, what about in a work environment where, because, okay, we're here in the DC area, so keeping it real, the saying is that everyone tries to get that good golden government job.
Yeah.
And then they work 20 and retire.
Yeah.
Some of them don't work 20. Once they get the job, they retire
They're
on
in
the
place.
job. Right.
That's right. Yep.
How do you interact with that behavior? Say, because I've watched the millennial go-getter execute their work, gets more done in half a day than some people get done in 3 or 4 days. And they're working circles around the person that is retired in the position, but they've been there 10 or 15 years. It really becomes a tense situation.
It does. And you know, that's actually the other side of the coin. That's really about accountability. So that's a manager's inability to hold low performers accountable. And for those of you who are managers in the workplace, and you know, we see this a lot more in the government sector, but we still see this in the private sector quite a bit. You've got to hold people accountable. And managers must hold people accountable for performance. It's very difficult for peers to hold other peers accountable.
Yes.
And when you have people that are retired in place, you're going to have, and I would say in my experience working with the government, you've got about a third of the people that are go-getters, go, 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 like really working hard, dedicated on it all the time. About a third are retired in place. I'm not going to do it. That boss doesn't like me. They have favorites. And then you have a third in the middle, right? Who could go either way. And so really it's so important that managers actually manage the poor performers to move those 2/3, the middle third into the 1/3. Because if you let people poor perform and get away with nothing, it creates cynicism. You're going to take that other third, they're going to go to the low performers, and it just ruins morale and engagement.
It does.
It does, doesn't it? And everybody knows who the poor performers are. Except for the poor performers.
Amazing, right?
Yeah. And I would say those poor performers usually are the ones that have the biggest victim mentality.
Oh.
I mean, think about it. They're often the ones that say, well, you know, nobody ever gives me a chance, or the boss doesn't like me, or they always claim favorites, or things like that. They're the ones that don't really take ownership of their workplace experience.
Now, Monday is the most popular day for heart attacks.
Yes. Isn't that weird?
It's said because people don't like their work environments. And they're just sitting back and they're accepting, but they're accepting and they're bitter.
Yeah.
For those that are watching this whether it's on TV or online on social media somewhere, what are some tips that Monday morning, going into the office, we can go into the office with a fresh face and a new attitude to try these new tips?
Oh, that's great. Well, first of all, I would say choose what you want. All right, so if you're in a very difficult workplace situation, let's say you have a bully boss, a tyrant, a screamer, a shouter, or someone who's horrible, you need to choose. Is this the job for you? I mean, you're not saying walk in on Monday and quit, but just make a choice. I'm gonna just accept this and try to suffer through as best I can without it, you know, putting on my golden shield and protect myself. I'm gonna actually try something different myself, or I've made up my mind today that I am going to leave, right? It's okay to quit. Quit with another job if you can, but it's okay if you've tried hard enough. So that's tip number one. Another tip I would say is for like more normal situations, right? Okay, but because if you really are in a bad situation, I don't believe anyone should be bullied or treated really poorly at work. I mean, you really do have to protect yourself and leave.
That person has to make the decision.
They have to make the decision. You just have to decide.
Do not wait until you get to a situation where you're experiencing heart attack symptoms.
That's right. And they say it takes like 22 months to get over a toxic boss. All right. So let's say your boss is not toxic, just a normal boss. You just want to spruce up. First of all, stop bringing your boss complaints. Instead, bring requests. Every time you bring a complaint, or every time you have a complaint, like this deadline's too soon, or your edits are too long, or whatever it is, there's a request inside of every complaint. Find the request and make it. So instead of saying the deadline is too short, say, hey, boss person, I would like to have an extra 2 or 3 days to work on this project, and here's why. And when you make a request, you have to tell them why you need the request and what it's serving. So no complaints, requests. Same with problems. Don't bring problems, bring solutions. Like bosses hate problems. Like I hate it when my team brings me problems. I love it when they bring me a problem and they bring me a solution.
Like they've already handled it.
They've already handled it, or I have confidence in them. I love them a little bit more, right? So problems, solutions, not problems. And the other thing is, you know, take a look at their perspective. Like really sit back and be like, what is Boss Anita's life like? Like what's the stuff that she has to deal with? What's her boss doing to her? Like what kind of things is she responsible for? What is she worried about? Like really try to put yourself in their shoes and figure out like what is really important to them. And then see if you can't find one thing, small or large, that you can do to make your boss's life just a little bit easier. Just a little bit easier. And I don't mean brown nosing, but I mean, like if I know that you're my boss, I know that you have this show every week, what if one week I just said to you on a Monday before a Saturday taping, I said, hey, how about I reconfirm all your guests for you? Like that'd be a nice thing, right?
Yes, it would.
Just little things like that. Any way you can anticipate your boss's needs and make their life a little easier.
Wow, make their life a little easier. Like as we said, the most popular day for heart attacks is Monday, because people dread going back into a work environment they hate. Don't allow your challenge of having to just provide food, clothing, and shelter for yourself rob you of the life that you deserve. Achieving balance, contentment, or even happiness requires change. To reach out to Mary Abbajay, visit careerstone.com. Make the commitment to change your life for the better today. I'm Anita, your host. Be sure to check out that'sanitalive.com for where and when to see our next episode.